what you are doing. Nesizulu bathi ubhotsha usemanzi. Ubani wazi cha kwadaza nangu ngithini. Exactly. And this is the period when most people are vulnerable, young people. And if we don't arrest it at that point, we might find out at the end, so what I'll do, I'll just talk to you about myself and my history, but we'll get to that. I'm going to pick on anyone. Ubay kamala. Angis? Kanyile, obani okanyile. Obani okanyile. Nazo kuphe ka. Phuma eDanawuzi. Wow. Ngidlula khona ke manje emsini. Mangiqhamuka nje Newcastle ngithi bese ngithi Danawuzi, ngithi Dandi bese ngiyofika ekhaya. Wena sisi ubani? Ka.
Mina ngithanda wakakhosi.
Kuphe ka.
Ekhaya sikhizwe ngempani isibonisa simatholana.
Nazo. Okhoza abadume ngani?
Okhoza abadume ngani? Awu. Ngokuningi.
Uyamazi uNtshinga wayo kaMahole Khoza. uNtshinga wayo kaMahole Khoza was the commander of the amabutho kaCetshwayo ngo-1879. If you know the Battle of Isandlwana, the person who commanded the regiment, the Zulu regiment, ngenkathi belwa namaNgisi, on the 22nd of January 1879. The military commander was uNtshinga wayo kaMahole Khoza. Some of you would know that day was the most embarrassing day for Britain's imperial quest. Ngoba they had come to conquer the whole of Southern Africa. And uCetshwayo had been given an ultimatum, the king then, he must stop being a Zulu king, and that he can't organize an army, and that everything now that he will be doing will be as per what the British colonial government was expecting of the chiefs and the kings to do. And some of those ultimatums that were given to uCetshwayo, they had given to him knowing very well which he was not going to agree, so that there could be a war, so that they could destroy the Zulu Empire. And that war happened on the 22nd of January 1879, and the British were defeated, embarrassingly so. But because they were so determined to come into this part of the world and eventually conquer the region, they fought 6 more battles against the Zulus. And they eventually defeated the Zulus in July of the same year, of 1879. Bambopha uKing Cetshwayo, wayohlala ko St. Helena, eventually even petitioned to see Queen Victoria. And why England, why Queen Victoria, to go and plead his case against what was now the imminent destruction of the Zulu kingdom. Abashoyo kasazi how trade is, but the king was so strong that when the queen met and looked at the King Cetshwayo, she went straight into her periods. That is what they say about the king. But yeah, that's not why I'm here. I'm saying this because sometimes it's important for you guys to know who you are, where you come from, and the importance of your own clan. Some people will accuse you of tribalism if you talk about I am Tsonga and this is who we are, blah blah blah. Then I tribalism. But they are trying to kill our own identity, and you must never allow that that to happen. When is Subay Gama? Shingani, obano Shingani. Nazo. Bupuma bupi. Uma kuqhamuka bupi.
Uma kuqhamuka KZN.
Where? Umkhomazi. Umkhomazi udume ngokuthi umfula wakho nathi ugcwala ngomoya mabesho la. Bathi ngifuma umkhomazi ogcwala ngomoya. Make wanomoya the whole river fills up. So thina safika eMlazi ngo1964, and I was 2 years old. My father besebenza in the biggest butcher shop eThekwini, driver. But he only had son 2, I think, but he had a driver's license, so he was the one who was elanda inyama eyilethe emadeleni ibisehamba yebusha kanjalo. My mom I think went as far as sub B. Ngokudabuka ke ekhaya sisemsinga, sakhulela emsinga. Sengisho ukuthi umndeni wakithi wonke. Ugogo wami wayinengane eziwu9. Abafana abawu7 namantombazana amabili. Kithi bekwaziwa ngokuthi kwasithole eziyonini. I'm now talking about our village home. Esigodini sasenhlanhleni inkosi yakwaMajozi. Kwathiwa ngikwasithole eziyonini ngenxa ukuthi ugogo wami wayekhulise izingane zakhe ngenkolo. Bebangabashumayeli bonke. Late 68 or early 69, I don't know. After my younger sister was born in 1968, we went home to Msinga. Kuyobonisa ugogo ingane uma wami nobaba they went home to Msinga. Kuyobonisa ugogo ingane, our last born. And mina with my younger brother who's late now, masifika Msinga sahlala. When it was time to go back to Mlazi, we refused. No, Tina, we are not going back to the township. Yini asifuna ukulusa inkomo. Sifuna ukudla uphuthu namasi. It was exciting for young kids to be in the village. Sibhude emfuleni, silusa imbuzi yonke leyo nto le. And it was only in 1972 that I went back to Mlazi. Then I started school when I was 11. The reason why I started school when I was 11, besides the fact that my parents really never went to school, so umukhule emakhaya kufanele ukhule to a point where usukwazi ukulusa khona imbuzi kuyima uyoqala isikole. And secondly, I was not able to see most of the time. My eyes were very weak. I didn't know what was the problem until later I realized there was a part of KZN where I get hay fever and then my eyes are always watering, especially during springtime and all of that. But ngenkathi ngikhula ke mina babecabanga ukuthi ekhaya ngikhalela usiko lakoma wami. Who knows what that means? Mathi ukhalela usiko lakubo kama wakho.
Isiko lakoma wakho awunesimolayize i-background yakabomama indlozi lakoma whereby you have to do ceremony, perform indlozi ethize elingene kuwo whereby indlozi eli-strong yakabomama. So only symbolize yokuthi mhlawumbe khona idlozi elikhalayo or lifuna ukwenzela umsebenzi.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the case. Thanks for breaking that down. They felt with the reason why my eyes, I was partially blind, I couldn't see most of the time, was because kunosiko lithile fanele lenziwe ekhaya koma. So bangithatha ke bangisa ekhaya kwaZuma. La uma ezalwa khona. Ngagcatshwa. So I also, just like ukhanyisile, ngagcatshwa nami. And they were so small, they felt no, these are not effective. They must do another one. So bangishaya futhi ezinye. And I wish they had done it bigger because I really like this. I really love it. And here there is one here that goes to the left eye. Blood was supposed to spill onto my left eye because that was the weakest eye. So they felt fanele ngicathe then fanele iconsele ngapha ukuze ngihileke, right? Even up until now, this side, I've got a weak nostril and a weak eye. I'm always doing this as if I'm doing drugs, you know. Besides the fact that I've never seen drugs in my life. In my 60 years, I've never seen drugs. You know, so I then went to school at the age of 11. Qala eNyanisweni Primary School, YE. Through some miracle, I can't explain it. I was reading a book as standard 1 by the time we were in class. And sometime in April 1973, sihlele class in Sub A, kunencwadi ngiyifihlile la ngaphansi, lo ngiyibuka. Kanti uthisha uzombona. Yini lo Sipho iphethe? Hayi incwadi. Bathi ayibheke. Ufuna incwadi yakabani? Ngithi awuyifundele iclass. Ngiyifunde le ncwadi. Agijima eku principal. He can read. Ngapronyota to Sub B same time. I honestly think that I had memorized the book. I think I had memorized it. I don't think I was able to read, but I could read. My sister had taught me how to read. So that's how I started school. And then in 1975, my father dies. And it was only then that I realized that all our lives, what we eat, where we sleep, revolved around my father. Because as I said earlier on, Babu Ube driver, truck of the biggest butchery in Durban. So we were never hungry in Mlazi. There was always meat. until he died. And that's when my life took a different turn, and I started working as a garden boy. I started working as a garden boy in 1975. I would have been 72. I would have been 13. And I was working in the white neighborhoods. Back then, there were no black people allowed unless you were a maid or a gardener, and you had to carry a permit in your hand, which you are whatever. So, jalo school holidays, you will get a letter from the principal that says Sipho Sithole is a student at Nyanisweni Primary School. During holidays or over weekends, he looks for a job and works as a garden boy. And my first job was 50 cents a day, which was the weekend. I could only work Saturdays and Sundays. So 50 cents. And my last job as a garden boy was in 1980. I was now earning 120. And what we used to do with the 50 cents, I used to save it. Saving, because I shout December. Then I go to town, eThekwini, I buy underwear in bulk. Yabona le yengwe lama under engwe and vests engwe ngihambe ngodayisa at the men's hostels at Cleveland's. And you are a kid. You arrive there, you are carrying all of this underwear. You walk into a men's hostel. There's a big hall with bed, umbhede, mhlambe 20 in one. I'm a daughter. We are figure. I was heavily malnourished. I was very small when I was a kid, and you give them what I just born in fun. Batate. We born into Yakihamba from one person all the way up. In Mibuya, there's 10 missing. And you can't say I pelele ngoba when you are brought up you can't accuse abantu abadala ukuthi bantshontshile, hayi mfana siyabonga kulungile bobuya ngelinye ilanga. And at that time you can tell ukuthi labantu sebengijontshelile into zami, but I can't say anything. Uphuma uhambe. And the experience of working as a garden boy and working in white neighborhoods was really not a nice one. Sometimes you would work, and I'm telling you the truth, you would work and work and work. At the end of the day, namba abangani bakho nabesebekulinde ngaphandle nabasebephumela lapha besebenza khona, and usulinde ukuthi bakunike le 50 cent wakho. Umlungu avela tete lizinja. Futhi ekuhamba, I've got scars here, dogs. These are dog scars. Ubalekela izinja zabelungu sebakusuyaxoshwa. Now, you can't even run in a white neighborhood. Because if you are running in a white neighborhood, it means you have done something wrong. Or something. Now urayina ugijima ngestyle nje ukuthi uzofika nazinja seziphume izinja from one street. There is just dogs just chasing you guys, and we will run. And sometimes there's always police vans patrolling. That was at the height of the struggle against apartheid. So always the system was always aware of the infiltration of Mkondo Esizwe into the country. So they always made sure that any suspicious black person in the white neighborhoods is questioned. They will take us, and they take you to a Montclair police station. There is a loose wheel, and driver lit. When I lang move, champana ubalekela this wheel, baleka nalelo kuza baze no figure lapha Claremont, Montclair. Banwashisa wonke amavan, all the vans, make you wash them. You wash them about 6 p.m. Bandedel. You are so happy. You think these people are so kind. They've let us go. You are like Nyabonga bus, donkey bus. We walk all the way back to Mlas. That was our life. As we were growing up. We grew up to be very tough, but also we learned to you had to do things for yourself. But it all had to do with what we wanted to be. All I ever wanted to be was to be at school. That's all I wanted. I never missed, when I started sub-A, it was 73, up until I finished matric at the age of 21. I had not missed a single day of school. And even when my eyes were weak, I would wait until 11, when my eyes acclimatized to the day and to the sun, and then I would walk to school. And when I was in Form 1, Standard 8, grade 8. Form 1, I got a job at the supermarket, Ekaya, which was just a street up, a few blocks up from our house. And then I started saving money. I saved. Well, and then 1982. So that year, 1982, I was admitted at Adams College. Adams College is on the way south coast towards Umkomazi, right? Nafika esikoleni, I had my money that I had saved, 482 rand, I remember very well. Pay for my school fees, for my boarding and lodging. Ngiqede ngimenze form 4. Form 5 angisenayo imali. Mangibuya ngoDecember ekhaya eMlazi ekuvalwe ikole. My late brother, my elder brother, says to me, a friend of his ungitholele umsebenzi as a messenger at Barclays Bank. Barclays Bank yayingakazi divest. It had not left the country then. It was still in the country. When it left, it became FNB. So anyway, Barclays Bank had a job for me as a messenger. Ngizohola 500 rand a month. My elder brother was earning 21 rand at Albany Bakery a week and was supporting all of us. So it was an obvious thing to do. Good now. Khona umuntu uzohola 500 like ekhaya ngenyanga. Hayi anguthathe. So mangibuye ekhaya after school during school holidays, my brother tells me this, then I refused. I said, I'm not going to take that job. What do you mean? I can't. We are 7 as siblings, 7 siblings. And my brother is earning 21 rand and no one else is working. So that day, my brother was so upset with me and accused me of being selfish. And I said to him, and remember, I'm a kid. No one is even advising me this. This is what we need to do as this family. We can starve for another 3 or 4 or 5 years. But if there's one person who can actually go to school and finish and get a degree and then come back and save the family, that is the sacrifice we must make. 83, I take my school trunk all the way back to Adams College. Mangifika laphana ngibhalela usibaru wami oganwe by my sister, the one that taught me how to read. He was a laborer in somewhere West Rand. Ngimbhalela usibaru ngithi usibaru sengisesikoleni ngikwa matric. I think probably bazongixosha ngoJune, but at least I can always say to people I did matric, you know. And he was just a pen pal. I just wrote him a letter. And 3 weeks later, he sends me 382 rand, 482 money order. That's how I paid for my matric. Kokelu matric kwami ngipass. So anyway, move from the Adams College, you have to. There's no way. It's 100% pass. It's bachelors. Exemption. You are exempted. You can go to varsity. And I had not applied to go to varsity because I knew I was not going to go to university. And I remember when we were writing matric, when we were studying for matric, there was a lady who used to sit next to me. Her name was Helen or something. Most of the kids who were there were kids from well-to-do families. You can't go to Adams College if abazali wakho bengekho financially. I took myself there. And I remember saying to this lady, I want to pass an exemption. Give me these forms. You know? And she gave me the forms. It was to go to University of Zululand. Anyway, matric pass, ngithole ibasari from the same college. Adams College was a combined high school and a teachers training college. I get a bursary, a Rotary, to do my teacher's diploma there. So I arrived 84, back at school in February. I think it was the 3rd or 4th of February, on a Saturday. Sizoqala isikole on a Monday. Masihleli in the dormitory. I'm now living in the teachers' dormitories. It's now 2 people as opposed to when we were trained in one big dormitory, because I'm now a student teacher. And I'm sharing a room with this guy, Wawamlitwa. He came from South Coast now. There's something I don't understand. Why would I spend 3 years doing a teacher's diploma when I can do 3 years at varsity doing a degree? I wanted to do a BCom. I'm not going to do this. But what do you mean? I'm not going to continue. I'm going to go to the principal in the morning. I'm going to ask them to transfer my bursary to go to a university. Ngangempela Monday ngihambe ngifike ngicela ubona uprincipal. Ngimtshela ngithi ngicela ukuthi ninginike ibursary yami ngihambe nayo. Athi principal, no, we can't do that. The bursary is allocated to the school. It's to benefit the students who are registered at the school. Get now, well, in that case, Tuesday, I take my trunk, go back to Emlazi. I'm telling you, mang figure Emlazi, there is a letter from University of Zululand. I've been accepted to do BCom. I didn't even know that. That's not a figure. So that night, that finally got registered the following day. That day, my elder brother was up and down, door to door, efunu 20 randish. From Etegwini, there was a train. It used to be called 1010. When the trains were on time, every day, that train was 1010. It left at 10:10 in the evening, all the way to Zululand, up to the border of Swaziland, Ekolela. So that, and then you would get off Mpangeni, if we Mpangeni or Ehluhluwe or Mtubatuba or Richards Bay. So I get off Mpangeni. When I got off Mpangeni, it's 5 a.m. Now it dawns on me, how did I think I was going to get to Varsity? I'm at a train station in Mpangeni. I don't even know where Ongoye is. So back then, there were taxis were my pirates. We did not have these quantums. Small, a Valiant or Nissan. So there was a pirate taxi. What we have not I don't remember how much he charged me, but I had changed. So I went there, I registered. When I registered Ongoye, they said, you can't start class. Why? You can't start class because you have to pay. But I have a card now, I have a student card. I'm so excited. I must go back home. I hitchhiked back to Durban. Mangifike ekhaya, my mom was now in Hluhluwe somewhere. It's another story. Now I need to get I go to the very same supermarket where I used to work. The owner from the university. Where are your parents? My father died in 1975. My mother was Zulu. I cannot talk to children. Just like that in Ham. It only dawned on me now. He was not saying no. He was saying, I need to talk to an adult if I can help you. And then I decided to walk from Umlazi to a place called Umbongintwini. I don't know if I was to tell you the walking distance, what it is. Whether is it from here to Kempton Park or is it from here to Tembisa, but it was a long distance. So anyway, Umbongintwini, there is a business person who brews, is a brewer, a Sogam beer, Amaju. Sogam beer. Ngifike lapha kulo baba la ngithi baba ngicela ungifundise uSipho Sithole ngasemlazi kanje ubaba usashona uma kanje usehluhluwe ngicela ungifundise nansi isengisongoye. This rich man says to me, I must come ngama Easter. Cabanga school fees was 1,300 and something rand. The whole school fee as a university there back then, boarding and lodging, fees, everything. Atagana emala ngibuye ngama Easter. And I'm asking myself, Gama East I would have been excluded because then the schools would have started, they won't be registering any kids. So I walk back. As I walk back, I remember what I used to do summer school at a black company, a bookkeeper. His company was called Mr. Gigi Dimgonyame and Associates. And I go there, ajabule ke lo baba uthi Sipho unjani ngithi ngipasile. Bese ngimtshela ukuthi I was accepted but I don't have money to pay. He writes a letter. I, Mr. Gigi Dimgonyama of Gigi Dimgonyama and Associates, hereby confirm that I will be responsible for Sipho Sithole's school university fees at University of Zululand. Please admit him back. Then I take that letter. I hitchhike back to Ongoye. That's how I started school. This is 1984, doing my BCom degree. But that year was an academic loss because then we got into politics. We made that was when the ANC was saying we must make the country ungovernable. And I was one of the 84 students who were not allowed to come back to university. And my name was in the, it was not City Press, I don't remember what that big paper was. I don't remember what I had done, whether maybe I was in the front in Toitoya or whatever, I don't remember, but I was excluded for political reasons. So eventually, that was then the end. It was supposed to be the end of me, basically. But I had this determination that one thing that was always driving me was about my mother. There was an event that shaped my life and made me who I am today. So this one instance, Uma Wami gets a job as a maid. I was still in standard 6, I think then, 6. Gets a job as a maid in the colored neighborhood called Ewentwet. And then she gets me a job there as a gardener in the same house where she's working as a maid. I have this visual memory of my mother in the kitchen wearing those kitchen maid uniform, her seeing me in the garden digging weeds, and I'm very small then. And then she then makes a sandwich, and because I'm not allowed to eat inside, she has to put the food on the veranda, and then I must come there, but I must rush to get it before even the dogs now get to it, you know. And that was the same thing even when we were working in the white suburbs. They'll just say, Biginini, come get your food. You'll run because they are competing with the dogs, right? Get your food. That day, I made a pact with myself and with God that if I could, my mother will never work in her entire life. And I think then I was in standard 6 or something. And I said, my mother will never work if I could. In 1986, I asked my mother to leave Ehluhluwe. I said, abandon our village home. We were now in Ehluhluwe. Abandon our village home, come back to Emlazi, Uzoshalala. Because at that time I was now working as a public servant. I was a clerk of the Children's Court. I was doing single care grants, foster care grants, adoptions. I was a court interpreter. I was doing permits, birth registrations, and all of that in the village in Tugela Ferry. And I was the only one working at home at that time. My brother was no longer working. This is now 1980, 85, 86. I now had a child with a girl who's now my wife, and she lived in Maritzburg, Mbali Township. I lived in a staff house at Tugela Ferry. My mother was in Hluhluwe. My siblings were Emlazi, and I was earning 585 rands a month, and I had to split this money. So I wrote to her, I said, Ma, please come back, so that I can direct money to you, to everyone in one home, in one household. And my mother listened to me. I mean, I was in the middle. Of all my siblings, I was right in the middle, but for some reason, I had a vision and I could speak and everyone understood and they would support me. So my mother abandons the home. Then I promised her, which I will one day build her a home in the village. And it will be Msinga, where we originally came from. But she must stay Emlazi until I'm fine. In the year 2000, or 1999, when I eventually said to my mother, it's time for us now to move and go back to Msinga. I'm going to build her a home. And I built her the home that I'm going to show you. And that home took me 3 years to build. And I was building it with my monthly salary. Abantu ke basemsinga babethe kunesigwili sase esiphume egoli siwini lotho abanye babethi nginamatekisi. But I wanted my mother to live a peaceful life in the village, away from the township, and making sure that she is never hungry, she never goes to bed without any food. And I built a home on a hill and made sure that there is running water, that there is electricity, and that the water is hot. And she lived there up until 2013, and she passed away at the age of 84. When my mother passed away, I got a call, about 4 exen, good, my mother had passed away. I had been there a week before, but she had cancer. And I had been there, and just a few days later, I was told that she had passed away. I then said to them, do not take my mother to the mortuary, you must wait for me to get there. And then at 6:30, I left Joburg, and I drove, it's about 5 hours, we are Ekaya, Epomeroy. Mangena endlini, they'd already put sheet elimhlophe. Uma wam was just ngale sheet, and she was now lying there peacefully. And then I get there, and I go straight to her, and I sort of like lie on top of her. I said, "Ma," and my mom says, her last breath was her waiting for me to arrive, and yet she had departed this earth, but she still had that last breath, waiting for me to arrive. And I said to Auntie Wami, "I think uma usaphila, ngimzwe mangimmemeza, kwathi hayi akasekho, you know." And when we took her to the mortuary, masifika laphana, I said to them, "Ngicela ninga ake simcheck just one more time ukuthi uyaphila yini, ngoba I think my mother spoke to me when I arrived." But anyway, she was gone. She was the person that I really lived. I lived for. After umatric, after my failure to finish my school ongoing, I had worked as a public servant, and then I worked at FNB. And then in 1989, I got a scholarship. I went to the US, did my first degree. I did my first degree in politics, international relations and politics, and I combined it with the education. So I did 2 degrees, and I was supposed to finish in 4 years, but I finished in 3 years' time. I finished 2 degrees in 3 years' time in the US. I hated America, that I was supposed to do my master's in New York at New York University, but I did not want to stay in the US again. I went to the UK. I went to one of the top schools in the world, did my master's at the London School of Economics. That's where I did my master's. I came back in 1993, October, and my first job when I came back was a lecturer at Wits University at the business school, until I got my first paycheck, which was 4,700 rand. And I realized that my dream of saving my family is not going to be realized with 4,700 rand. I left, I resigned, and went to airports company. So we were one of the first managers that actually took over the airports. What you see now, OR Tambo, all of these airports. We then started running that establishment, the 9 airports. I was employed as a junior HR manager, and within 6 months, I was promoted to HR manager, and I was sent to Port Elizabeth. In Port Elizabeth, I was now in charge of the 6 regional airports in HR. I was running Bloemfontein Airport, East London, Port Elizabeth, George, Kimberley, and Uppington. I was running those airports. Then I came back to head office, and then later on I joined Ericsson Telecoms. Not the device, but the one that builds the network. We're building the MTN network here. We're building the MTN network in Botswana and everywhere. I was the HR director there. After 3 years at Ericsson, I was then promoted to become MD of another entity that was now in charge of building the network. I was going to Nigeria. I think I went to Lagos like 36 times during my career there. After that, I left. I went to Jonic. Jonic owned Sunday Times, Business Day, Financial Mail, New Metro, Cinemas, Gallo Records, and Exclusive Books. I was head of strategy. I was building cinemas in Kenya. I was building cinemas in Nigeria. I was building cinemas in Ghana. A year later, then I was promoted to Deputy Managing Director of Gallo Records. That's where my music business started. I signed and produced the first album of Thandiswa Mazwai Izabalaza. That album was produced by myself. I got the award as the best producer. I signed Simpiwe Dana. That first album, Yezandisile. I am credited to have been the person who mainstreamed hip-hop in South Africa. Some people call me the Russell Simmons of South Africa. I was the first person to put a bet on hip-hop. Because when I started running Gallo, all the big Kwaito artists were everywhere else except at Gallo. And those that had failed elsewhere, they wanted to come to Gallo. And I said to Gallo, do not sign Kwaito. You've missed the boat. There are people who are good at Kwaito. You must sign hip-hop. But why? Because if you listen to hip-hop, young people are saying something, except that no one is listening. So we need to give them that chance to say something using the medium of hip-hop, which is rap. 56 bar song, 56 bars. They are talking. Quiet about put, that's all they are talking about. You know? Yeah. But hip hop, young people were saying something. I believed in the words that were contained in the music of hip hop. And I signed Squatter Camp. So Squatter Camp was the first artist to be signed by a major record label. I signed Pro Kid. That album, Heads and Tails, is my album. I signed Mr. Selvin, the album called Formula, where he's wearing a suit or whatever, like that. I then left Galo and started my own company, Native Rhythms. When I resigned at Galo, I got a call from the CEO of EMI, which is now part of Universal, saying, Sipho, we heard you are leaving Galo and you are starting your own label. We want to talk to you. At that time, I had no artist. The only artist that was waiting for me was Zulu Boy. I had offered Zulu Boy a contract at Galo, but I told him, I'm leaving Galo in a month or a month's time, but it's up to him. And he said, no, he's not going to sign. He's going to wait for me to leave Galo, then he's going to join my label. I stayed 6 more months at Galo while Zulu Boy was homeless in Yeoville. Zulu Boy was the person who eventually made me leave the company because I could see how he was struggling, waiting for me to leave. So I went to meet with the CEO at EMI, and then on my way, I called Sipho. Sipho, I want to sign you. Because I wanted to get to EMI, meeting the artist and saying, sign me. It was only a conversation on the phone. Man figure at EMI. I've got 2 artists, Zulu Boy and Sipho. Anyway, the rest is history. We signed Sipho, signed Zulu Boy. Zulu Boy then released the first album called Masihambisane. So those that went to school, not you guys, that went to school back in the day, in Standard 1, the same book that I was reading when I was in Sub A was called Masihambisane. He called that album Masihambisane, which was like the first steps of someone going to school, knowing who you are. His second album, I think, was Igoda, Angisakhumuli, the third or not, it was called. Sipho became the biggest thing in South Africa. We signed Sipho 2000 I left Galo 2005. We signed Sipho 2006. Our idea was to release him in 2007, and Sipho did not want to release an album. She was scared. She was shit scared. So I kept saying, no, so we're just going to keep on recording. Sipho, don't worry, we're just going to keep on recording songs. By November, the album Sipho was finished. We had enough songs to release an album. We didn't tell him. But now we are releasing an album. We said, no, we're just going to do a photo shoot, and then when it's ready, then Ama Summers. The Summers, you had to submit. If you want to enter Ama Summers, you must submit on the 30th of November for the following year. We went and printed 5 copies. Remember, you have to submit 5 copies. We printed only 5 copies as submit. Sipho won Best Adult Contemporary African Album. Sipho was the biggest thing. Native Rhythms was suddenly like the label to go to. I signed Tamakwini, which I still think Tamakwini was the best for Native Rhythms. Zulu Boy, Masihambisane didn't do well because he was too Zulu and Joburg. They thought, we don't understand this guy. Until one day when we did the second album, we did the song Nomalanga. Remember? Mm-hmm. How Nomalanga gets to be done. Udom, there's an amazing producer, his name is Dom. Now, Ulendo did a sample of Nomalanga. Then I say to Zulu Boy, this song Nomalanga, you must write it either way. It's either you are writing to your fiance back in the village, you are telling her that you are coming to Joburg to look for a job, and that she must take care of imbuzi nayo yonke into igceke nje libe right uzobuya ngama-Easter noma ngo-June noma ngo-December, or you must write it as if you are going into exile, and that you don't know whether you'll come back, and you are going to fight for the liberation of this country, and she must just stay and wait for you. And then Zulu Boys chose the latter, chose what he's going to exile. So he wrote that song around those lyrics. I went to Caiphas Semenya. The song is composed, it's a Caiphas Semenya song. Not Caiphas, I need you to please give us blessings. And ngale ngoma le ukuthi singayirelease yini le ngoma le, you know. Anyway, wayilalela Caiphas, and Caiphas was like, this is it. And
we are looking forward to coming back home and being with our loved ones.